farm, you know, yeah. My dad's a keen gardener, you know. I think it's rubbed off.
It was said that those seeds had been sent to you. How did you come to grow them?
Yeah, well, we got a load of seeds, you know, kind of in the post, and we didn't know what they were, you know. We kind of planted them all, and five of them came up illegal.
This illegal drug was gradually influencing the mainstream by stealth. The image of the stoned hippie had entered popular culture.
Thank you, said Dylan. Now, for my first number, I should like to give you my rendition of that old favourite. Now, what was it? I appear to have forgotten. Oh, dear. But the gramophone hadn't forgotten. Second verse.
And they could sell it to television for $500,000.
The American film director Dennis Hopper didn't have an easy ride in this interview, as he was taken to task for the film's graphic portrayal of dope-smoking youth.
Yes, but smoking pot may be the scene of a small group in the States, and I'm sure that within those groups it is very prevalent, but not everybody accepts that this is here to stay, or is indeed that it is right that it should be here to stay.
Well, yeah, but, I mean, these characters in this movie would smoke grass, and I think that, like, I would say that 80% of your high school students in the major cities in the United States have smoked grass. Marijuana is not habit forming, and the government reports in England, the government reports in the United States, Look magazine, Life magazine, I mean, it's becoming like a joke. I mean, it is less harmful for you than a cigarette. It is not addictive like a cigarette. It is certainly less harmful for you than alcohol. And the fact that it leads to harder drugs, which is the great cry of the bourgeois, it leads to harder drugs, is because a pusher, a dealer, can't make any profit really off grass. I mean, you can buy enough grass for $50 to last you for a year.
Yes, but surely an awful lot of people who potentially might have liked the film are going to be alienated simply because the two characters are addicted to smoking grass.
Well, then they should be, well, I mean, the film basically is about people who are narrow-minded, isn't it? I mean, we're killed by people who are narrow-minded. Perhaps even our characters themselves are narrow-minded in a strange way. So I just have to relate again to the government reports that this is indeed not a harmful drug.
One such report was the Wootton Report, a royal commission chaired by the indomitable Baroness Wootton.
I am quoting from the Regius Professor of Physics at Cambridge at the beginning of this century, very distinguished medical man. This drug is especially efficient in producing nightmares with hallucinations, which may be alarming in their intensity. Another peculiar quality of it is to produce a strange and extreme degree of physical depression. An hour or two after it has been taken, a grievous sinking may seize upon a sufferer, so that to speak is an effort. By miseries such as these, the best years of life may be spoiled. The drug is tea. That makes one a little cynical.
Baroness Wootton was one of those fantastically intellectual, assertive women who were our heroines, heroes, really. A great exemplar of what a woman can do in power.
The Labour government had asked Baroness Wootton and her committee to look into the subject of cannabis. The report was published and found that far from cannabis being a dangerous drug,
the long-term consumption of cannabis in moderate doses has no harmful effects.
They went on to recommend
possession of a small amount of cannabis should not normally be regarded as a serious crime to be punished by imprisonment.
But these modest recommendations fell on deaf ears. Middle England wasn't listening, and the breeze of moderation was lost in a gale of anti-drugs rhetoric.
We have really got to come to terms with the fact that if we want a society which has any cohesiveness at all, it must be a society which is prepared to take stands on issues like drug taking and not suggest that because so many people do it, then we can't have a law to stop it. If everybody started thieving, I suppose we're suggesting that we oughtn't to have a law to stop them thieving. This is not the answer. The answer is if there were more people who were prepared to honestly stand up and say, it may not sound desperately swinging, but I'm against it. I don't believe it's a good thing.
It's interesting if you look at all the social legislation of the 1960s, which includes the liberalising of the laws on gambling, on censorship, minority rights, women's rights. They even abolished hanging in the 60s. The only area of social policy where laws were tightened up was drugs.
Home Secretary Jim Callaghan ignored the recommendations of the Wooden report.
I am not ready to take risks with permissiveness when so little is still known.
You have to be kind of a bit cynical about this, because the only time that the government actually puts in a royal commission is when they actually don't want to do anything about a topic, and it's a way of kicking the issue into the long grass.
The authorities were holding firm, but had they taken notice, they would have sensed public opinion was slowly turning. When Shirley MacLaine talked openly on television about smoking pot, she kept the audience's sympathy.
What kind of stand do you take in these areas? I mean, for instance, take drugs, things like pot. I mean, have you smoked pot?
Oh, sure. 2 martinis will knock me flat. Pot, I just sort of sit around, you know. Imagine oh, it's a big subject. Of course, marijuana, in my opinion, should be legalized. First of all, you'd have wall-to-wall prisons if you really meant that everybody who smoked it had to go to jail. So, I mean, how can you possibly enforce the law, for God's sake? Yeah. You'd be trampling over bodies to get to the next cigarette. So that's sort of dumb. But I think the important thing is not whether pot should be legalized, but why they're smoking it. Why do they feel this necessity to zonk out so prevalently? Why is this checking out so en masse? Why do they feel so demoralized? That's the stuff I think we ought to be talking about.
The spirit of inquiry was prevalent in the 70s, as the media turned its attention to the science of pot. No avenue was left unexplored, no stone unturned in our search for facts.
A lot is known about alcohol as a social drug, but there are as many differing and contradictory opinions about cannabis as there are names for it. Hemp, marijuana, pot, keef, grass, tea, hashish. Now, we're going to see some scientific evidence about, 1, what sort of measurable effects does it have, and 2, is it likely to lead on to more dangerous drugs?
Inhale. Keep going. Keep inhaling. Come on.
We watched as scientists got their subjects high, then put them through a series of experiments designed to further our understanding of the effect of cannabis on our bodies and our nervous systems. We saw driving tests.
Bad left-hand men coming up, going into 3rd gear.
This subject is driving quite efficiently and carefully, but he is in fact high.
Tests of skill and memory. People wired up to machines.
The subject's brain waves are measured. It's a particularly sensitive way of charting any withdrawal symptoms.
And we heard expert testimony.